All right, to this side of the room.
I just have a comment and a plea. To take your finishing comment there as a segue, I understand that medical professionals, many of them are ethically opposed and should be afforded the right to not provide this treatment if we were to go down the road of not only decriminalizing but legislating and providing for a positive obligation on the state to provide a service in narrow circumstances with ample safeguards, in circumstances where even the world's best palliative care just isn't sufficient for those limited few people that many of us intuitively sense that we get it. And my only plea is that, and after thanking the panelists and Frank for convening this, that our honourable member of Parliament would prefer to see legislation as opposed to leaving it to the courts, which cannot provide a positive obligation on the state to do such things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, hold on. Yes, go ahead.
Just have a quick
Greg?
comment here about the Canadian Medical Association, which is very true that they have come down with policy. It's not uncommon for a very conservative organization such as the CMA to have such a policy. Many physician organizations are extremely conservative about many issues and have been for many years, including abortion. I am of the belief that each physician has to determine for themselves whether they will be involved in offering a service. And if you cannot, then referring to another physician is quite appropriate, and this has been the practice for decades. 1 in 5 physicians now support physician-assisted dying.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Question here.
My name is Louise Forrest. I wanted to speak to that subset that was talked about of people for whom there really is very little quality of life left. My brother died in January after a 10-year battle with a neurological disease similar to ALS but different. He fought with great courage. He was not depressed. He kept choosing when he could life-supporting measures such as feeding tubes, but got to the point that he could not look after himself, couldn't move, was in a diaper, couldn't speak, had the feeding tube. He actually died of pneumonia, and perhaps it was his will that chose to not fight the pneumonia at the end. But had he continued and survived the bout of pneumonia, it was becoming apparent that he was getting tired of this fight, and there really was so little quality of life left for him. I would like to think for him, that small subset that does not represent a slippery slope, that there would have been an option for him to say, enough is enough.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Final comment, question? State your name again and direct the question. Tell us who you're directing your question to.
My name is Ed Crispin, and I want to say thank you, Frank, for the invitation to come this evening, and to everybody on the panel who I think has made a very distinctive contribution this evening. And I want to address my comments chiefly to Dr. Bowman for his comment, and I have a question for him as well. First of all, I'm a native of Windsor, so I picked up my ears when I heard Dr. Robinson give a bit of his background. Congratulations, Dr. Robinson. I wasn't responsible for it. I was born there. Also, I want to say that my career has been as a student and then in medical research and in family medicine, and I have practiced in Montreal, Hamilton, Morriston, and Guelph, the last for 55 years, and that ended abruptly 2 years ago. And since that time, I've had a chance to do a little reading, and I've come across an author by the name of Elio Frateroli from Philadelphia, who's written a book called Healing the Soul in the Age of the Brain. So this introduces another aspect that neurophysiology has identified areas in the brain that are said to be the seat of the soul. So let's think about that aspect of it. That in every situation, there's not only the individual, but there is the family. And our chair tonight has illustrated very well how, in the midst of their grief and despair, there was healing. So it seems to me that that's important. And there are many, many, many aspects to the question, this whole question, and I congratulate the panel for bringing it out so well. I'm reminded of Ulysses, when in his later years he was despairing over his son Telemachus and his aging wife. And then he said, as though to breathe were life, life piled on life were all too little, and of one to me little remains. Though then he goes to his mariners and says, let's push off again. He never lost the zest for life. So my question is, how do you persuade your students that not only is it sexy, but this field is very rewarding, as many doctors who are involved in this area will testify. Thank you.
Dr. Thank you.
I do my best to encourage my students, but I must say, sir, I think you could do a better job of encouraging them than I have done. Honestly, that was excellent, and that was especially the Ulysses part. Honestly, I say that with sincerity. I do my best with encouragement, but they need to hear other voices, and they need to hear voices from the public. And I challenge my students on these things, and I challenge, I push back. Why did you go into medicine? I push on these types of questions as best I can. Thank you.
Thank you all. Oh, sorry. A final word here, Dr. Heisel.
In lecturing to a group of students once and talking about the demographic shift, and one thing I was surprised to learn recently and really thrilled to learn, according to Statistics Canada projections, by 2060 or so, they expect that over 78,000 Canadians will be over 100 years of age.
Wow.
So reflecting on some of that, I've said to some of our trainees in psychiatry, I know many of you want to go into child psychiatry, but don't buy the yacht quite yet, and you should really focus on the other end of the life course. I think the other thing, just to be very clear, is that often geriatric medicine is overwhelming for trainees. And there's a fairly well-known finding that trainees in medicine who go through geriatric rotations become less interested in working with older adults. With some of the work that I've done looking at enhancing psychological resiliency, focusing on wisdom and the like, I have a wonderful experience in my research, and so do some of my trainees. So I think that we need to balance out some of the training experiences we provide. And if it's just with people who are seriously ill or terminally ill, we're not going to see the increase in geriatricians and gerontologists that we need.
Thank you. Before we adjourn and before everyone runs out, I just want to say a few words in closing. This isn't a pending issue. This is a present issue. I think, as Wanda indicated, it's currently before the legislature in Quebec. I expect that if it does get through the legislature in Quebec, it's going to face challenges. I know we all expect that, challenges in court. But notwithstanding, I just want to thank every one of you for coming out tonight, because these issues are complex, but they are so important. They are so important that we inform ourselves of all sides of the story. I've learned a lot. I hope you've learned a lot. And frankly, I've learned as much from the questions tonight and the comments that have been made from the people who are in the audience as I have from our panelists. And I also want to say to each of you, we are deeply grateful that you've taken time to come here and share yourselves. I mean, I have little gifts that can in no way properly extend our appreciation for the comments and the contributions you've made for this discussion. I've always said that I feel it's my obligation as a member of Parliament not just to be your voice in Ottawa, but to bring the issues home, to have a discussion about them, so that when they hit the legislature, when they hit the press, you've had an opportunity to talk about them and think about them, and not trying to deal with them at the last minute and based solely on emotion. So, before you leave, Dr. Robinson, could you? Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you. And Dr. Bowman, I'll come over. Dr. Heisel, it's big. And Wanda, thank you so much for coming. And thank you all. I'll be sticking around for a few minutes if you want to talk to me, and I'm sure some of the panelists might be here, although I know Dr. Bowman is trying to catch transportation back to Toronto. Thank you.